welcome to Thinking Outside the Box with me, Tim Box.
And me, Britt Box.
We talk about all things to do with your mental health and your emotional well-being and how to navigate your own mind in these strange times. But we're not doctors, so please don't confuse our advice for medical advice. And even though we come at these subjects with a slightly more light-hearted approach, please don't think we're trivialising any of the topics we discuss, because we certainly don't. But because we come from a slightly different angle and perspective, we called the podcast Thinking Outside the Box. Hello, Britt.
Hello, Tim.
How are you?
I'm right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I mean, I know we've sort of, woken up together and it feels weird saying hello as if we've just walked into the room.
You say we've woken up together, but I wake up every morning on my own.
Well, I mean, that's a bit... and we're beginning in a dark place. No, that's because I get up at a normal time.
Well, you say normal. You get up at like the crack of dawn. You get up at like 5 a.m.
No, that's wrong. It could be 5 a.m. for all you know, but it's not. It's 6 a.m.
Look, I need a lot more sleep than you. We've realised this over the years. I reckon I need... I mean, did we do a podcast about sleep or did I dream it?
Yeah, we did do a podcast about sleep, yeah.
Yeah, I need about 10 hours sleep minimum. I saw a thing yesterday and I got really annoyed by it that said...
No,
I know. That said, like, adults actually only need, it was like 6 hours sleep. And I was like,
I think there's a lot of contradictory advice out there about that. I've always... So the expert that I go to, the videos I watch on YouTube.
Oh, you're just like every other internet expert then.
Well, there is I wish I could remember the guy's name at this exact moment, but he talks about 8 hours being what your brain needs to...
No, 10. 10. Honestly, any less than that, and you don't want to come near me. You don't want to come near me.
Maybe the lesson to learn here is listen to your body. And listen to yourself about what you need. I mean, I will talk to people about... Why are we going to talk about sleep? It's not about sleep.
Do you know what? No, we only spoke about this because you said we woke up together and I said, no, I wake up on my own. Because what happens is I get up probably about like 8:30 on a good day, 9 on a usual day.
Yeah.
And you get up probably between 6 and 7.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I'm always saying to my clients, when we're talking about sleep, they'll often say, I sleep really well. I sleep for like 8 hours. But then you ask the question... When you wake in the morning, do you feel rested? And they'll be like, oh no, I could always use more sleep. And then it's like, well, okay. So it's not about the hours you're getting. It's about maybe the quality of sleep. It's about what you need as an individual.
By that logic, I should still be in bed.
But you know what I mean? It's like, listen to you rather than just decide, okay. Because you put those apps on your wrist and things and it tells you how long you slept for and how long was your deep.
I hate them.
I'll have clients and they'll be like, well, I know I'm not sleeping well because my Fitbit says that I'm not sleeping well. And yet they wake up feeling okay.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, well, I got a great night's sleep last night. Can't work out why I'm exhausted. And it's like, well, obviously you can't just go by your phone stats on this one. You've got to be a little bit more... What would you call it? Not mindful, but a little bit...
Conscientious?
I don't know. That's more in touch with you is what I'm saying, I guess. Listen to your own body a bit more. Okay.
We're not actually talking about sleep today, though.
That was a nice little segue. We've not gone off on a tangent, have we?
Oh, I know. Very unlike us.
But yeah, so we haven't done a podcast for a couple of weeks now. Couple of reasons for that. First of all, I think 1 week we were quite busy and we had a lot of things to do.
And 1 week I was massively depressed.
That might have been it as well. There was a little bit... Yeah, I seem to remember a bit of... No, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I didn't want to... I was very depressed. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was just in my own little hole.
What'll happen then? Our regular listeners, whenever we don't put a podcast up 1 week, they'll be like, "Is Britt okay?" And it's not...
To be fair, if I don't post on social media for a few days, people start calling the Samaritans asking if they've heard from me.
Well, I've done that before when you've disappeared. when we first knew each other and you disappeared off Facebook for a couple of hours.
A couple of hours.
I was like, what's she done? Is she all right?
I was in a bad place at the time as well. I'd like to point that out. It wasn't just...
Yeah, you weren't exactly on suicide watch, but I was a bit like...
I wasn't far off.
I got your mate to go around your house.
Yeah, no, you came round my house. You got my friend to call me. You turned up at the door.
That's right, yeah, I did. Yeah, I remember that now. Wasn't that romantic of me?
Wasn't that traumatic? Which leads us nicely on
nice. Yeah, so this week's podcast is about trauma.
Oh, it sounds so fun.
We're coming back big. But it's not. Look, we're not trying to. We don't want this.
We don't want to traumatise you.
We don't want to be a downer. But I sprung this on you this morning, didn't I?
You did. I thought we were talking about something completely different, and you were like, "Actually, let's talk about this." And I was like, "Right, okay, yeah." The one thing that I've had to deal with all my life.
Well,
awesome.
Much like trauma, it comes out of nowhere, doesn't it?
Brilliant.
With no preparation.
Well, yeah.
Exactly at 6 a.m. Well, I've been up for 3 hours wondering what to talk about, so I've ended up prepping something on trauma.
I was brushing my teeth when you told me.
Well, anyway, let's get into it. Yeah. Also, I should say another reason why we didn't do a podcast. We went to a wedding.
We did go to.
We were away for the weekend.
Whose wedding did we go to?
It was your friend Gemma, wasn't it?
She absolutely hates Tim calling her that.
Well, okay, so I reaped what I sowed the other day at the wedding, because on the nameplate setting on my table was Britt's husband Tim,
which you deserved.
Which I deserved, yeah. But I did message Gemma after the wedding and said I do feel like I'm your friend now as well. You're not just Britt's friend.
Well, I was her bridesmaid, and she looked absolutely beautiful, and it was a wonderful wedding.
She looked frabjous.
Oh, look, he's learned a new word and he wants to use it now. What does frabjous mean, please, for the class?
It means like wonderful, spectacular, delightful, that sort of thing. It's all the words you would describe somebody on their wedding day.
Ah, lovely.
Although frabjous doesn't sound like a nice word, does it?
But no, she looked stunning. The wedding was great.
Yes, and now we're back with a podcast about trauma.
Fabulous.
Make the connection as you will there. No, but I wanted to talk about trauma. This is one of the things that's been on my list of things to talk about for a long time, because it's one of those, what you might call the fundamentals of mental health, isn't it? It's like, trauma is something that we very often, well, the word gets used a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It gets used for lots of different things. But so I know we're going to get into this a bit later.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. But I didn't realise everything I had been through in my life was considered trauma.
Really?
Honestly, it was only maybe, I don't know, just before I met you or around the time I met you. It was probably around that time. The rest of the time, I genuinely just classed it as, I've had a lot of shit things happen to me.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't realise, I almost didn't realise I had a name. And I know we talk about sometimes when things get named and things get labelled, people... It goes above, like I can't do this because of my anxiety, because of this, and it gets kind of used and levelled in that way. But I'm the sort of person, and you know this because I when I delved into my hypermobility diagnosis, that's really helped me. So I do find that sometimes words to describe the thing can be a great assistance. Yeah,
I know we were talking about this, weren't we? Because I'm very sort of anti-labels, because I'm not a diagnostic practitioner. When you come to me and I'm not going to say, oh, you've got generalised anxiety disorder or something like that. We're just going to talk about how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and how we get you feeling better. That's the point of what we do. But I do recognise that I've had many conversations over the years of people telling me, well, actually, I found my diagnosis helpful rather than unhelpful. And I do get that, because you could easily argue, couldn't you? Well, knowing what I'm going through exactly, it enables me to realise I'm not alone. Yeah. And it enables me to realise that there is now something I can research to find out what to do about it. Yeah. It's almost like, if it's a tool for taking action, I'm all for it, if you know what I mean.
Well, this is it. I've found labels sometimes incredibly helpful. Like I say, not just with my hypermobility, because I went to the doctors when I was a kid, and it was like, oh, she's a bit bendy, but now, now as an adult, and I know what hypermobility disorder is. I know how to protect my body from getting worse, if that makes sense. And also with mental health, when I quote unquote had depression, when I was going through periods of depression, and then I thought I was, and I'm using big inverted quotes here, better. Yeah. And then when I went down again, I was like, oh God, it's come back, or it's this, or it's that. But now I have my own definition of depression, which I navigate, and it has genuinely really helped me. And it stopped me thinking that going back into depression, if you will, is like a spiral thing, when actually it's just me living life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, is that it's a definition can do us harm when it restricts us, or when it causes us to kind of lean towards the symptoms that we're expected to have. I know I've spoken to people many times.
When you talk yourself into it almost.
Yeah, dealing with anxiety. And as soon as you research anxiety disorders, suddenly you're feeling all the symptoms. So doctors would call it the somatization of symptoms.
Oh, that's a good word. That's a good Scrabble word, that is.
Isn't it? Yeah. But basically it means, you think about what's going on with you, and then you create the symptoms that you fear because you're putting too much focus on that.
Just a posh word for talking yourself into it.
Yeah, kind of. It's like the placebo effect. So, sorry, the nocebo effect.
Nocebo.
Yeah, which is
I've not heard of that band.
They're slightly more depressing
Oh, yeah.
than placebo. But nocebo being the opposite of placebo. Placebo being where you...
take something that makes you feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And nocebo being where you create with your mind the negative things that you fear.
You know quite a lot of good words, don't you?
Well, you know,
I don't give you
I come
credit.
across a few good words.
I don't give you credit for the intelligence that you have here. I don't.
Thank you for recognising that, and I'm glad we've got that recorded just for posterity.
I still think I'm the smart one in the relationship.
I feel like I just want to sample that. You saying that, I'll give you credit for all the things you know, and then I'll just play that back to you whenever we're in a conversation.
As I say that, I still think I'm the smart one in this relationship.
I think you are as well, to be fair. You still organise me. I know that much, and I can't, keep a basic functional life going without you.
But no, I do think, like as I say, I do think some labels can be helpful. And when I realised that what I'd been through as a child, in several ways, was classed as trauma, that then has helped me deal with it. I still haven't dealt with it, but do you know what I mean? It's helped me in a way, rather than me just saying, I tell you what it was, it's the difference between me saying, I've had a shit life.
Yes.
And I've actually had a few traumatic things happen in my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's reframed it almost.
So some of the accounts that I follow on your social media, there's a discussion that seems to be starting to spark a little bit about the definition of trauma and what classifies as trauma. And I was there's somebody that I follow who I really like their content, even though a lot of the time I mildly disagree with what they put, but I really like what they talk about. And they were talking the other day about we need to stop classifying everything as trauma, because it diminishes the people who've been through the really extreme traumas in their life. It just makes it that, well, I've had trauma as well, that sort of thing. Whereas I think there's a counter argument there that says if you only reserve the right to call something traumatic if it falls in specified categories of what you've been through, then you kind of dismiss all of our struggle. And I don't think that's fair either.
No, I think when you start gatekeeping mental health,
I
don't think that's, I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
When I was in a period of wellness, if you will, and I had someone say to me, well, if you're all right now, you were never really depressed in the first place.
Exactly.
I'm like, tell that to the 21-year-old me who nearly jumped off a roof. Absolutely not. I don't think we have any right to say to people, it's that thing of, well, you don't have it as bad as me. Granted, right, what I will say, I will caveat that with the trauma of maybe your hamster dying and the trauma of maybe seeing someone get killed. Like, I believe, I do believe those are two different traumas.
But again, you're talking about a spectrum here.
Yeah.
You're talking, it's like saying, at what point are you on the autistic spectrum? At what point are you on the anxiety disorder spectrum?
I think we're all on a spectrum.
But that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not. There is a line where you cross, where you get an official diagnosis, and somebody has to decide arbitrarily what that line is when they're diagnosing you. But I think this is the important thing. So for me, when I'm dealing with clients, when it comes to the terminology we're using, I will use what they bring.
Oh, okay.
If somebody says, I've been through... So you said, I've had a lot of shit happen to me when I was a kid. So brilliant. I'm not going to probably use the word trauma with you then, because you're talking about all the shit that happened to you.
Yeah.
If you come in and say, I had a traumatic upbringing, I know we're talking about trauma.
Right.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? Because it's ultimately just a word.
Trauma. Some words sound scarier than others, though.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember when... when I first went to a doctor many, many years ago, and I went in there, crying, like, I can't handle life because my mum's dead and I'm on my own. And I was given, what was it? What did they say? Clinical depression and severe anxiety disorder. Yeah. Rather than,
you've been through shit and you're reacting in a healthy way to something that's really bad.
Yeah, I automatically thought there was something wrong with me. But I think with trauma, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're going to go into sort of a definition at some point.
You can see I've got my definition. I've printed this off of the internet, so I need to use it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but trauma, is something that happens to us? Is it something we're passive in?
Oh, wow! You've gone kind of a little bit philosophical here as well. I believe. Well, I mean, when we're referring to trauma, we're talking about an event, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're talking about something you've gone through.
And is trauma ever something we've done? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but this is interesting, isn't it? I mean, we're going to come on to blaming ourselves for the trauma we go through. But trauma is very much used to describe things that happen to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about, a trauma response in terms of the way our mind might react to that.
Yes.
But trauma is very much describing, the stuff, the impact it has on us, I suppose. Well, should we go for definitions?
Go for the definitions.
Let's go with definitions, right?
I see you've got two.
I've got two. You know where they've come from.
I can't read them from here because my eyes aren't that good, but I can see you've got two.
I have the spectacles on. So,
mine are by my desk.
Yeah. I've got the dictionary definition. I've got a Wikipedia definition.
I never trust the Wikipedia definition.
No, you're not meant to, right? Because you know what Wikipedia definition is? It's people.
I know.
It's the general populace and what they think.
What was the best one? We listened to a podcast called All Killer No Filler, and didn't they change one of the hosts on it, Rachel? They changed her Wikipedia page to something like sister of, and they put her sister's names in and everything because anyone can just use it to take the piss.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And if nobody challenges it, then it gets left up there. It's simple as that, So
although remember when I put myself as a person of note from Maidstone and it got taken down.
Did it get taken down? Yeah. Oh, then you didn't want to fight that then.
I'll put it back at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an oxymoron, isn't it? Person of note from Maidstone.
All we've got really is Mackenzie Crook, the guy who was in The Office and Pirates of the Caribbean. He's from Maidstone, and apparently David Bowie played in Maidstone once because there's a blue plaque of him in that.
You know what? I've been to many places with plaques of David Bowie where he played a gig here. He's toured the world. Like, do you know what I mean? You don't have to put a monument.
You can't cage Bowie down.
Yeah, exactly. He's an earthling, isn't he? That's what. Well,
he's dead now. So. R.I.P. Bowie.
Anyway, well, you didn't have to mention that, did you?
Is it traumatic?
It is a bit, yeah. Anyway, without getting too flippant, the dictionary definition: a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Okay,
I would
that
agree
is
with
describing the event.
Yeah,
that's just that sort of thing.
A deeply disturbing.
Yeah, or another one that the dictionary gives us: emotional shock following a stressful event or a physical injury, which may lead to long-term neurosis.
Oh, no, I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's describing...
I mean, who am I to disagree with the dictionary? But I agree with that.
What is it? Even if we do, it's like tough, isn't it? That's the dictionary. But so it's describing the event and also the resulting mental trauma response, I suppose, the emotional impact of it,
The emotional fallout.
Which, I've not really got an issue with that definition. I have issues with some definitions of certain things, but that one I'm like, that seems to make sense to me.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Also, which may lead to long-term neurosis. I might come back to that.
What does neurosis mean?
Well, it's like neurosis is probably what we would call insecurities, emotional restrictions. Yeah,
okay.
emotional fallout, basically.
Yeah, is neurosis the same thing as neuroses?
Yeah, well, neuroses is the plural.
Oh, is that all it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think. Christ, I'm like, this has served me right for getting the dictionary out, hasn't it? Okay, Wikipedia, though. Trauma is a type of damage to the mind that occurs as a result of a severely distressing event. So it's talking about the impact. Yeah. Trauma is often the result of an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds one's ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved with that experience. The second sentence there, I like.
Which was
an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds your ability to cope or integrate the emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. The first one, a type of damage to the mind.
I mean, how awful does that sound?
I think that's a dangerous way of defining it.
They do say, though, don't they, that things that happen to us alter the shape of our brain but to use the word...
Yes, they do.
To use the word damage, I think, is not the best.
Well, this is the thing. There's certain associations with the word damage, isn't there?
Well, yeah, like you're broken.
Yeah, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's an accurate way of describing it. I think, so the way I think of trauma, and this is why I probably have a broader scope of what I would regard as a traumatic event, is something that happens to you that causes a certain confusion in the subconscious. Okay, so I'm always, as you know, I deal with the conscious and the subconscious. The subconscious is the bit that holds all of your beliefs, all your responses, all of your automatic stuff, yeah? All of your emotions. So I'm always looking at what's your subconscious doing, what's the impact upon it. A traumatic event, I think, is one that causes some degree of confusion in the subconscious that leads us to adopt some kind of new emotional strategy based on that thing.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's to put simply, there's a bit of you when something bad happens, you need to work out why did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does it mean in terms of now that's a thing that can happen? Yeah. How do I stay safe from it in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at what you did to cause it, what you didn't do to stop it, that sort of thing. So you're coming up with different strategies. This is why if you nearly drown, for example, you might then feel fear whenever you approach a large body of water.
Right. Yeah.
Because your mind's going, okay, that can kill you, by the way. So I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable when you get round it, so that you're going to be encouraged to move away from it.
But that's going on the understanding that it's something that we've done that we can prevent.
Exactly, which is the mistake, isn't it?
Yes.
Because trauma, if there's one thing that categorizes trauma, it's like you said, it's just happened to us.
Yeah.
Not like we brought it on ourselves. It wasn't something we did.
No.
It was something that kind of landed on us. You know, a lot of people would include in their trauma definitions things that are out of the blue, unexpected, things that just sort of completely create a havoc and chaos in the mind. You know, would you like to? But I think this is the danger here. When we see, you could argue with my definition, trauma could be literally anything. And this is the thing. I don't think you define what's traumatic by what it was that happened. I think you define it by the impact it had upon you.
Yes.
Your own perception of it.
I would agree with that, because everything is relative, and one person's struggle will look different to another person's struggle.
Absolutely. You know, you and I will look at the same thing. You know, one of us will scream. Remember that spider the other day? Oh my God, I thought somebody had broken in the house.
I do not remember the spider.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
You've had
blocked it out.
You've blocked it out. You've repressed the memory.
Yeah.
Well, you basically, you made a sound. I think we might have mentioned this on the podcast before. You made a sound like somebody had broken into the house. Like, oh my God, Tim, like literally, you are now confronted by an intruder.
I was being confronted by an intruder with 8 legs and threatening eyes, and he had a machete in every hand.
Did he?
Yes.
I've now got a very vivid image of the spider that does not resemble the actual spider that I found when.
Look, I don't like being I don't like being surprised by things. You know me.
You don't. That's really true.
I don't like things being like sprung upon me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I spook easily.
When I once told Britt to mind her head because the cupboard was open above her. Oh my God! I was like, oh look at you! Like, ah! Like literally.
I feel like if I was a cat,
you'd be on the
I'd
ceiling.
end up on the ceiling, yeah. Or I'd be fluffed up a lot of the time.
You
know when they like poof out? That would be me. Just
yeah.
I have a nervous disposition.
Yeah, but this is the thing, and that's what I mean. Trauma isn't about does that thing that happened fall within the category of trauma?
Yes.
It's like how did it affect you?
Yeah.
You know what impact did it have on you? I think that's the important thing. So anyone that's talking trauma, I'm very unlikely to say to them, not really trauma though, is it? You know, because
I think the problem comes when two people who've experienced trauma speak to each other.
Yeah, and then it's a trauma comparison.
It's a trauma off.
It's a game of top trauma trumps.
It is. No, because I understand it, that I would feel, everyone's entitled to feel the way they feel about certain things.
Yeah.
But I can completely understand how someone would feel affronted or insulted even if someone said, oh, you lost your entire family. I know how you feel. I lost my favourite bracelet once. Yeah. It's that, and then because I can understand the one person trying to relate. Yeah. But then one person being like, Are you kidding me right now? So I can understand it. But as a general person to person, as you say, trauma is relative.
I think you're right. I think when somebody attempts to understand, somebody says, "Oh, I understand," and you're thinking you can't possibly understand because you haven't been through it.
Yeah.
It can feel not insulting, but maybe dismissive. And it's like you haven't really acknowledged what's going on with me here.
When the other person is only trying to be relatable.
Yeah, exactly. They're only trying to do good.
No,
they're only trying to say, hey, you're not alone. I'm here with you. I'm putting my arm around you here.
I know I'm the worst one for it. I do understand that. When people are like, oh, I understand what you've been through. It's like, no, you haven't. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Well, I remember when I first met you, we had a conversation that you were like, I don't think anyone's been through as much as me. There is nobody, there was almost like a kind of, it wasn't maybe articulated, in that sense, but there was a feeling like...
I didn't feel like anyone would understand.
Yeah, and this is why you weren't rushing into talk therapies and things like that, because you didn't feel like anyone could possibly come from your starting point and help you with where you are, because they couldn't understand where you are. Which is a real... it's a real common kind of feeling, isn't it?
I do still feel that way because, you know,
Yeah.
whilst there have been people who've lost parents, who've lost grandparents, you know, over the years, I've seldom spoken to anyone who's lost everybody all in a very short time frame who was left alone at 16.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
do you know what I mean? So even people who've like lost a parent, it's like, but you may have had the other parent, but you may have had, you know, a brother or a sister with you. You may have had aunts and uncles. I went from whole family to no family to on my own. So as a result, as you say, I didn't jump into talking therapy, which is probably something I should have done. I mean, I know we're going to talk about where people can get help near the end.
Yeah.
But I do recognise that those beliefs of mine had maybe restricted my recovery and had dragged it out a bit.
But that's the danger, isn't it? That's when we start to keep the term trauma. Like, so, well, you can't. That's not the same category of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why the trauma spectrum is so wide.
Yeah,
you know, in
absolutely.
terms of what that is. And but yeah, I mean, so I've got talking about what classifies as trauma. Then,
Yeah.
I looked at some, you know, journals, some what is the thinking on this, some people's opinions, and I sort of compiled a list.
Oh yeah.
And this is what I talk to my practitioners about when we're training, when we're doing our monthly forums. Things that people regard as trauma, what can cause trauma, yeah. And it is quite broad-reaching. Okay, so I'm just going to scoot through the list here. This is a real, you know, top 10.
The worst top 10.
Yeah, I know, the worst top 10 ever. But so first of all, any form of abuse.
Yeah.
So it could be physical, sexual, emotional, and that kind of, see, I used to think of trauma as something that happens quickly in the moment, but of course abuse is something that carries out over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And that's often why it's allowed to continue, because it isn't just that horrible thing that you jump from. It's like, oh, it's insidious, you know, it grows.
It's like the frog in the boiling water.
Exactly, which we've talked about in a previous podcast, I believe. You know, that thing where you just end up sitting in the horrible situation, not realising how really intolerable it is, you know, because we can tolerate quite a lot when we desensitize to it. And that's the problem, isn't it? And we only really recognise its effects when we come away from it. You know? A serious accident or illness. Yeah. So a lot of people have been traumatized by going through COVID, you know, because we've got, I know we know some people that are experiencing long COVID.
Yes.
You know, and that can be, and there's
not just having COVID itself, but we've all been in this trauma response, if you will, for over 18 months now. You know, this is going to affect everyone for a long, long time. Like in the same way that my generation, I know every generation was, but I do specifically know that my generation, the ones who were teenagers when 9/11 happened, that affected a lot of us going into adulthood. You know, and I feel it's going to be, you know, akin to that in the future when we look back on it. Yeah,
I mean, it's like wartime for us, isn't it? We've not been through a war, but this is like a couple of years of us having to have a collective global effort.
Yeah,
that's quite big, isn't it? And also people that have. There's been a lot of anxiety caused by the various symptoms of getting ill from this, you know, in terms of, and the fear of what might happen, because there are, you know, it does kill people, you know, so anything that we're feeling, you know, it threatens us in that way, you know, that's.
And they speak about, you know, children who are going through it now, growing up, you know, being like germaphobes and stuff like that.
Yep, I'm seeing a lot more people.
Oh, really?
Who are, very. Almost like, I suppose you could argue, overly mindful of that sort of stuff. You know, I think, you know, being clean and you know, observing hygiene is a good thing. But when it becomes something that intrudes in our life, you know, you look at the extreme anxiety responses like obsessive compulsive. You know, there's a lot of people developing those sort of behaviours and strategies because they can't control the world around them.
Yeah,
they're looking to control it in their, you know, their own little space. Bubble. Yeah. Domestic violence is obviously, I think, one that people talk about a lot when it comes to trauma, and also one of those ones where we traditionally end up doing that thing. So that abuse and domestic violence, one where we traditionally end up blaming ourselves for it happening,
or for not leaving.
And again, I think it's that part of our mind that says, well, I need to control the likelihood of this happening again in some way, in some capacity. And when we did nothing to deserve it, when we did nothing to bring it on, and certainly nobody's done anything to warrant domestic abuse. It's
never your fault.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, if you can say, well, if I can work out what I did wrong, then at least I'm in control of whether it happens again or not. Yeah, so you gain some level of control in your mind over the likelihood of having to go through that negative experience again. So as a result, you blame yourself.
Yeah.
And then you don't just bear the effects of the trauma, you bear guilt now.
Yeah.
And you end up feeling very, very, well, shit about yourself. Yeah, and it creates a very, very bad self-image, you know. So these are the knock-on effects of this stuff, you know. Bullying.
Yeah.
So I went through a bit of bullying at school. I mean, I always play it down because it wasn't, you know, I know bullying is in some cases very extreme. My bullying wasn't extreme, but this is where I'm coming.
Like we say, it's not what it is. It's how you make
exactly.
Make you feel.
I know there was. So you know, I remember a time when. So this is a really weird story. I've never told this story before, but it was my birthday at school, and everyone had bought an egg at the shop at lunchtime.
A single egg?
No, well, you know, I believe probably they grouped together and bought a box of eggs.
Why are they selling eggs to kids at the school at lunchtime?
It's like cigarettes under the counter, and it can have just a single egg, please. Are you 16? Okay, there you go.
That's ridiculous.
No, but I mean, I don't know the mechanics of who bought what. You know,
Okay,
I don't have the receipts, but I knew there was the rumour going around that at the end of school they were just all going to fucking jump on me and egg me.
That's not a nice birthday.
No, because this is the thing.
You went to a boys' school, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Well,
Tells me everything I need to know.
It's the thing. It wasn't like lads, mates, get in with an egg. It was all the people that I knew. They weren't doing it because they wanted to show, aren't we good mates? They were doing it because they hated me.
Do you know their names? Because I could find them. Because I've never heard this story, and I don't take too kindly.
Okay, anyway, but
I'll track them down.
I remember how I felt in my last lesson that day. Yeah, and it wasn't that, I'm going to get covered in egg yolk, you know, because I could deal with that. I could handle that.
I mean, I couldn't. I'm allergic to egg.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just keep mouth shut.
It would kill me.
But it was that everyone had decided they would single me out for some negative attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that...
Oh, I'm going to kill them all.
Have I not told you this?
You've never told me. Maybe you've not told me this because you know I would strike vengeance.
That's it. I need to, but this was the thing. And I remember it was probably one of the lowest feelings I'd felt. And I should say, it wasn't any physical violence, you know. It wasn't any of that.
I mean, I don't know. I'd argue it's pretty physical.
But I mean, that wasn't what upset me.
Right.
What upset me was that everyone was revelling and taking joy in the idea we're going to get him.
I mean, they are teenage boys.
I get that, but that's the point, isn't it? And I was a teenage boy at the time as well. So this was the world. This was the microcosm of everything that existed, was my social circle at school.
Yeah.
And to know that everyone else in the year who barely knew me or just didn't like me or wasn't friends with me was going to take part in this, I felt very much victimised, and I just remember it was, you know, I can remember it vividly, sitting at my desk, and somebody who I thought was this lovely, passive, friendly person saying, I'm going to get you later. And
punched him in the dick.
But you know what? It does have a happy ending.
Go on.
Because somebody who was my friend, who I didn't quite realise how close a friend he was, saved me.
Aww.
Basically, he said, look, I know where they're waiting for you. Come this way home instead. And so they didn't get me because he could see I was distressed. Yeah, I wasn't enjoying this.
No.
And the funny weird thing that came out of it was when I realised, oh, you don't just hang out with me because I'm one of the people in our group and you just tolerate me. You actually care about my happiness. And that was, I don't know, it was just an interesting, and I very much regard that, even though it was just getting egged at school, which is nothing compared to the thing.
You say this, no, that's not a normal thing. Like, that's not a normal thing that happens.
Yeah.
Like, like, I got bullied at school, but it was just really unimaginative teenage boys who called me fat. Yes, well done.
Yeah,
but
the bullies at our school, they were quite intelligent.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that was not an intelligent thing just to egg somebody, but, you know,
Well, it was very organised.
Yeah, it was organised trauma.
Jesus.
But anyway, but that was the thing. So I'm not, this is the danger of the definition of trauma. I can see you've gone red.
Yeah, I've gone... Nobody does that to my baby.
Well, they don't do it now. You
know?
But
I'm not.
You're not okay with that,
I'm not, no.
Do you need us to stop the recording for a moment?
Find me their names and I will send them shit in the post.
Do you know what? Here's the interesting thing. I don't remember the names of the people that were going to do it. I do remember the name of the person that helped me.
Oh,
you know, maybe that's
nice.
the learning.
I mean,
there.
I remember the names of everyone who bullied me, but that's just because
Because
I'm like Ira Stark.
They're on that list. Yeah, that's what you whisper to yourself as you go to sleep at night. The names,
because I will get them in this world or the next.
but that's what I'm saying. Is
People
that
don't cross me,
it
babe.
is how it appears to you. And the thing I want to say as well, it's not like I want to say to people, oh, so you know that thing you went through, that classifies, that's trauma, that is. So that you can now say, right, I need to get my trauma dealt with. I'm just saying that no one has the right to diminish what you've been through because only you were there. Only you experienced that, you know.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I'm glad that the after effects of that, I don't feel them day to day anymore.
No.
You know, I don't, the social anxiety that contributed to.
Yeah.
I don't have to suffer with anymore. You know, there's don't get me wrong. There's moments when I'm like, oh, that's a big crowd of people. I might just go the other way or something like that. But there's certainly, you know, my day to day, the impact that had on me. Yeah, absolutely. I was incredibly suspicious of everyone that walked up to me for a long time. Yeah, but I'm not anymore. You know, and that's the good thing is that we do get to change this stuff.
Well, we can't both be suspicious of everybody. Then we'd never leave the house.
Well, I mean, that's 18 months old. Okay, other things that obviously, like,
what does that word say?
What?
The one under bullying.
Disasters.
I thought it said dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. Well, I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean that would be traumatic.
From here, it looked like dinosaurs.
Well, just ask the characters in Jurassic Park.
I mean, the dinosaurs did all die out of a disaster, so.
That's true. Tenuous link. Well done.
You're welcome.
Yeah, any natural disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I literally...
Like
I was
hurricanes, tornadoes.
Speaking to a client recently that was in the middle of a tsunami.
Oh, God.
You know, so yeah, that was... And, you know, they spoke to me about it and they cried instantly as they mentioned it. Oh. And they said, I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. Because it wasn't like that's what we came here to work with.
Yeah.
But they were like...
I mean, there's nothing you can do about that.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it's like... But this is the thing. It's very rare that somebody describes something they've been through as traumatic and I'm not like, yeah... I get it. I see, you know, when what you're describing to me, I can see why that would have an emotional impact upon you. You know, because it's always a reason. Yeah. There's always a reason why your mind responds in a certain way. Yeah. Doesn't always feel logical. Doesn't always feel like it's the best response, but we understand it. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Here's one: forced displacement.
What does that mean?
Well, I take it to mean like. So refugees having to leave, you know, people coming across the channel in a boat, you know.
And I remember when my mum died, because my mum died when I was 16. Yeah. And they said they were going to put me into foster care until I turned 18. Yeah. And I was like, lol, good luck trying. And
but that would,
and refused. But
yeah. I mean that would classify as
absolutely.
in my thinking anyway, unless I'm misinterpreting that one. But that's what I've always took that to mean. Yeah. But we see that a lot, you know, in war-torn countries. Yes. You know, literally
with what's going on in Afghanistan at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that going on, and that leads us on to another one: military trauma. Yeah. War or conflict. Obviously, we talk about
because PTSD is very much linked.
I was about to say that. Yeah. When we think PTSD, we often think
soldiers.
Yeah, soldiers stuff and that. Yeah. And of course, last one on my list anyway: bereavement or separation. Yep. Which you know all about.
I do.
And also, I put this in block capitals for my practitioners when I teach this class. Witnessing any of the above.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't have to have been you that went through it.
I know people that have seen. I say people like it's multiples. I know a person. Yeah. Who saw a horrific accident. Yeah. And they weren't involved. They weren't hurt. They weren't, you know, but they saw it. Yep. And it has affected them every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we have this great quality of empathy. Yeah. But it can work against us when we. I mean, what were we watching the other day?
Fascinating horror.
Yeah, because of.
I like. Okay. Look, don't judge me, but I like watching quite dark and macabre. True stories.
You like your true crime?
You know what? Not even true crime. Like I do love a bit true crime. I love a bit true crime. Bailey Sarian, she's amazing. But I like watching, and it's so bad, but it's like bad things that have happened and these accidents and everything. And I don't know what, I just kind of watch it because even as I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, that's awful. That's terrible. But I don't know why I keep going back and watching them.
We watched one the other day, and I remember telling you. I think I need to stop watching this.
Yeah, we turned it off for a bit, didn't we?
Well, it was, what is it, the Nutty Putty Caves, and a guy that died in the. So people go potholing,
Which is stupid
I
decision
mean, it's
anyway.
just the most ridiculous thing to do. Crawl into tiny little holes in the ground, and
I mean, I'm claustrophobic anyway.
Yeah, and they were describing him getting stuck, and it was quite vivid that they had diagrams and they had
because it was a bit of a weird way that he got stuck, and then an equally weird way how he couldn't get out. So I think the diagrams were for that, and I was just watching it and thinking, oh my god, this is really sad, but it's really interesting, and like, how did that happen, and blah blah blah. But you kind of.
Well, I think I just empathised too much with it while we were watching it, and my whole thinking was like, well, I know he dies because that's what the story's about. It said it at the top of the video. So what's going to happen now is he's just stuck, and he's awake, and he's like, oh, can you get me out? And I'm like, he just stayed there and died.
Yeah.
And I don't think my mind was okay with that concept, and that's why I wanted to stop. And then we stopped watching it, and then I'm like, I need to put it back on because that's all I've got now is that. And
But then we watched another one that affected me.
Yeah.
And you didn't understand why I was so affected by it. So it's very, very personal.
Very personal. Yeah. I mean, the thing with me was that I needed to know he didn't just kind of, I don't know, like waste away for days.
No, it was
and it turned out there was a second collapse, and he was knocked. Yeah. Basically was killed in that. So, and it's almost like, well, that's a small mercy that it happened quickly. But there's certain things that
the one I watched did me in more, which was like the theme park one.
Yeah,
with the person and the foot.
What was that one?
So someone, oh God, apologies if you're watching this and you have a slightly nervous disposition, but just hear me out. Someone was at a theme park in America, I think it was America, and they jumped over the fence into a restricted area, and it's never been known why they jumped over into this restricted area. It was thought maybe they were trying to get a shortcut, or they were trying to like get to the front of the queue or something. And so they're underneath this roller coaster, and the roller coasters, the people are sitting in it, and their feet are dangling like Nemesis. Like Nemesis Inferno, is it?
Yeah, I love Nemesis.
Yeah,
it's
so
amazing,
so their feet are dangling. Anyway, long story short of it, this guy was in the restricted area, and the roller coaster came round, and someone's foot that was dangling on this thing basically kicked this guy's head clean off, who was in the restricted section. And that did me in more than that one, because all I could think was, God, what if that was me? What if that was my foot? Because I'd like to point out as well, the person whose foot it was, unharmed.
I find that astonishing as well.
Yeah. Well, I think like a mild sprain or something, but completely unharmed. And then that's that thing, isn't it, where it says witnessing any of the above. So being the person who did that, but you were just on a roller coaster. Yeah,
exactly. And yet you were saying, weren't you, that I would carry that guilt with me for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Yeah, even though it's not your fault and you didn't do anything, like there was nothing you could have done.
But this is the thing. I'm going to come back to this thing. I think it's a perfect link into how I see it.
Yeah.
The confusion of the subconscious. There's no easy compartmentalization of that experience.
Yeah.
We can't just file that away simply as in the way that we do. It requires a lot of conscious examination, if you know what I mean, because if you think of it like, I always say this, don't I, like the subconscious is all the guys in the background just doing their jobs, running the ship sort of thing. And there's a point where, okay, I don't know what to do with that. I haven't. This is not the run of the mill stuff. I need to, consult the captain on this one. And it comes into our conscious awareness, because it's like, well, I can't process that. And this is what I think happens with trauma, because your bit of your mind that's trying to process it can't easily compartmentalize it. It ends up stuck there trying to do that job
because it doesn't know why.
Exactly, and it needs an answer.
Yeah.
We need to resolve it in our mind what that's about, And this
does that create guilt?
Well, it can do.
Yeah.
But I think it creates guilt when we're like, well, obviously I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that isn't always the logical conclusion, but it can be a conclusion your mind comes to. So I refer to it as the unsolvable puzzle, and this is how we work with it, so me and my practitioners. Yeah, the idea that a bit of your mind has been given a jigsaw puzzle. Right, your job to solve this puzzle. Yeah, so we can put it away or whatever. And we already know it has pieces missing. We know we're never going to be able to complete this puzzle because it's never going to make sense. There are lots of things in life that are never going to make sense. And that needs to be okay.
Yeah.
We need to be able to file that in the compartment of, that don't make sense, but that's okay. Because not everything in life is going to make sense. And if we can do that, then we can allow that part of our mind to stop having to work round the clock to do that job. You talk about PTSD. We flash back to things. What's that? Your mind's still trying to make sense, replaying the movie in our head. What happened there? How do we stay safe from that in the future? What does that mean, that exists in this world?
What could I have done differently?
Exactly. All of those questions that go unanswered and will never be answered. And this is why I think it's almost futile to try and put some logical meaning on that thing, because trauma, one of its kind of common characteristics is that it shouldn't have happened, really. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's one of those things that we're not going to be able to put an easy logical explanation on, I think.
No. It's that thing, that I said that we were talking about, that you need to get from trying to work out why it happened to more of a, I'm not okay that it happened, but it happened and I'm okay.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's a really good way of putting
it. Don't get me wrong, so when you listed the types of trauma, I know that at least 5 things on that list I know I deal with and I have been dealing with, and some of them I'm now in the realms of it happened and I'm okay, but some of them I'm still trying to
process.
Still trying to process.
Yeah, I totally get that. The classic example that I think I had a very sort of handy, convenient bit of learning on this when I started to see clients in my first couple of years, because I had 2 clients come to me in quite quick succession. It was only like a week apart from each other. They'd both been in car accidents in recent history. So one person was seeing me because I'd been in a car accident and now I can't get in a car. And the other person was seeing me for something completely different, but just happened to mention when I asked about, any medical or hospital visits. Oh yeah, I was in the hospital last year because I was nearly killed in a car accident. And but they were still getting in the car every day since then.
I thought you were going to say, and it turns out one was in one car and one was in the other car.
What if it was a film or something? And they fell in love. But no, the point being was that the person who couldn't get in a car now, they don't remember the accident. They literally just woke up in hospital.
Right.
And so their mind was still trying to process what happened there.
What did we do?
Exactly. And the one that could get in the car, I said, well, what happened? And she said, I was texting. I wasn't paying attention, because she's one of the younger generation,
Don't text and drive, people.
Exactly. There's the message from this podcast. But the point being, she knew exactly why it had happened, and she knew exactly how to make it not happen in the future. So she could say, it was my fault. I was texting. Unfortunately, it was only me that got hurt. That sort of thing. But the other person, there was what I call the broadest strategy had been applied, where we can't work out what we did to cause it. So the only thing I know I did wrong was I got in a car. So we'll just avoid that, and so we create fear around that.
I mean, I understand. I understand it.
But that's the thing, isn't it? We kind of get it, But it's more about how do we then resolve that? How do we then, get to speak to that part and say, look, I get why you've come up with this strategy, but there's certain things that are not going to make sense. That life is going to land on us sometimes. But fortunately, it'll be infrequently enough. Whereas if we don't dwell on that, we will move on from it. And I think that's the thing here, that we're talking. We want to give a message about getting over the effects of trauma, don't we? Rather than just, now we're dealing with trauma and we're going to be there forever.
Also, living your life not doing a certain thing because of something that happened is not, the avoidance strategy is not,
Well, it's just your mind trying to keep you safe. But at the same time, safety isn't the goal here.
No.
That isn't our purpose. We're not here on this planet just to stay alive. I mean, some would argue, no, that's exactly what our brain is trying to do for us. But I would argue your brain is trying to steer you towards happiness. We know there's loads of occasions in our life where happiness is absolutely, we recognise it as the motivating factor.
Because if it was just safe, we wouldn't go on roller coasters.
Well, exactly, because we wouldn't jump out of airplanes.
I mean, I'm not planning on it.
No,
you randomly out of nowhere the other day, you were like, I think I'm going to jump out of a plane, and I'm like, are you all right?
I didn't say I think I'm going to jump out of a plane. I said I think when we've got the time, I'd like to learn to skydive.
Which is hilarious because you don't like heights.
Look, I'm okay with heights.
You are absolutely not. We were at the top of a building, and you were like, I'm not gonna look over. You're fine if there's a barrier. I think,
exactly. But that's what I mean. I have a healthy.
Yeah.
I have a healthy caution around heights.
I just like taking the mick out of you. That's all it is.
I know it is, yeah. But anyway, point being that. By the way, there's loads of people who skydive who are also afraid of heights.
Really?
So, yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I know. Well, it is cool,
I'd
isn't
love
it?
to skydive, but I would worry about the person strapped to me.
Well, the point is you do it enough times so you don't have to have anyone strapped to you.
That I wouldn't like either.
Because you'd be in charge of the cord.
Yeah, no, thank you. Oh, God, what if I forgot to pull it? What if
you
I forgot
won't
to pull
forget to pull
What
it?
if I forgot to pull the cord? Oh, God.
But I think you've
Or
got...
what if my parachute got sabotaged like that guy that I listened to on that crime podcast?
On the true crime podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that wouldn't happen either. But this is the point, isn't it? So
it was done by his partner, by the way. It was sabotaged by his partner.
Can we not turn this into a true crime podcast?
I'm just saying.
Can we just not do that? But that's the point, isn't it? Trauma, we hear about these things because they're really unusual.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't hear the stories of the millions and millions of people every day that just had a really boring, ordinary, perfectly good day, because that's not exciting.
No.
Yeah? And that's not unusual. Yeah, the fact is that most people on the planet have a perfectly ordinary day most days.
It's like you say about the plane crashes. When people are concerned about plane crashes.
Yeah.
We all I was about to say, because thousands and thousands of flights go off each day. They don't at the moment between 2020 and 2021.
Well, I looked it up. So the person that's afraid of flying will notice the one or two incidents in the news about planes over the last 5 years or something, but they'll ignore the 14 million commercial flights that happen every year without incident. You know? And it's just, but we do that when we have something we can't solve, when we have a puzzle we can't easily put right and we can't complete, then our mind will just say, right, best strategy here then, just avoid it. Then, And I think that, so the thing I want to say, I don't, let's talk about what if we've suffered trauma then. Let's talk about in the sense of what do we do about that. Now, I think ultimately, of course, the thing we always recommend, go see a professional. Yes,
talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. In terms of listening to you and being able to sort of help you work through it. Yeah,
and this is the thing as well. I know that you'll hear a lot of people saying, see a trauma expert about any trauma. But then that gives the problem of, well, am I categorising what I went through as trauma? Is it officially trauma or something like that?
Well, I didn't think that what I went through was trauma, so I wouldn't have sought that out.
Well, this is a lot of the time when people come to see me, we don't categorise it. No. And we wouldn't want to, because we're just dealing with what they're going through. So I think there's a certain argument for seeing an actual, specialist in the field. I'm very pleased when people come to see me about anxiety because that's my specialist area, and I consider them to have come to the right person. But
I'm the man.
Yeah, exactly. Good choice. But the point being here is that see somebody. Yeah. Because a lot of the time the problem is that your mind's trying to deal with this unsolvable puzzle, and guess what? It's unsolvable. Yeah. So you're not really going to be able to, and unless you can do the work yourself, which you can do. Don't get me wrong. I tend to think we are our best therapists because we know ourselves better than anyone.
Yeah. I mean, you know me. I didn't see anyone at the time because I didn't feel ready to talk about it. Yeah. And here's the thing, I suppose. Because I've only ever saw someone for talking therapy. It was very brief. You remember it? I think it was very early on in our relationship, and I saw someone for a little bit, and I really didn't like it. No, I didn't really get anything from it. But I know now, years later, I saw the wrong person, and
precisely.
And I think if you find the right person to talk to, because honestly, I don't want to say, hey, what you need to do is you need to find a great hypnotherapist and marry them, but what I will say is that obviously having you in my life has been a great help. But there are, you've been all right.
In certain areas,
but there are things that maybe I would in the future go on and maybe speak to somebody before. But I tell you what it is with me, and I think other people might relate to this, is that even though I'm a good 16 years post things happening, I still don't feel ready to talk about it. Yeah, I know I've spoken about it on this podcast, and I've spoken about it in passing, and I did my TED talk on it. But that's just me. This is my therapy. That's just me talking at people. I don't think I'm ready to hear anything. Do you know what I mean by that?
So I'm going to just chip in with my opinion on this one. Then, seeing as we're here. I think there's a certain part of you that has that attitude that we've already made reference to in this podcast, which is nobody can possibly understand. Yeah. And I get that, but I think that's what would have to change, or certainly that part would have to entertain the idea that talking to someone will help before you were going to be ready to do that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so I would use the comparison, right? You have a writing mentor.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
So, yeah, she's amazing. Now, I remember before you got on the first call with her, and you were very much like, oh, it might be a waste of time. I don't really think, I know what I want to do. I don't really see, And then you had a fantastic call with her, and you were like, she's awesome. She's the one. I want to talk to her regularly. Yeah. And that's the feeling when you find the right person.
Yes.
Is like, okay, I didn't realise what professional people in this field can do for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I would say is that, yep, I'm sure there's people listening to this podcast who have had an experience of going to see a professional and it not working out for them.
Yeah.
But that you shouldn't conclude from that professional help is not for me.
No, you just need to find the right person.
Find the right person. And it's not even about, oh, that was a bad practitioner or that was a bad counsellor or therapist. It's about they just weren't the right person for you.
Yes. Yeah. And I firmly believe that. I really, really do. I've said this for years that the ability to find somebody that you can actually talk things through with is akin to finding a really good relationship. It's not you didn't get in one relationship in your life, it not work out and say, well, maybe relationships aren't for me. So it's that.
Well, to be fair, some people do, but no, that's the point. There are many and very different people on this planet, and people that are doing the same profession won't go at it the same way. And I'll tell you this right now: first fundamental foundation stone of all the work that people like me do is to be able to have a good rapport with the client.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's about two human beings. That's not about what I know about mental health or what I know about my profession or the person's background. That's about, do we click?
Yes.
Do we feel like we can connect on a level that we need to? Which is why I always say any professional that is worth their salt, that understands that relationship and the fundamental importance of that relationship, should be happy to talk to or see you without you having to pay them to find out whether they can help you.
So like a free consultation.
Free consultation, yeah. That's my fundamental belief, is that anyone that doesn't offer a free consultation has either bought into that idea of, well, my time is valuable, my time is money, or they simply don't understand. They can't help everyone. Yeah, you've got to find out if you can help people first.
I will say as well, because the person that I saw was on the NHS.
Yeah.
So I had to wait the 24 weeks and had to see someone, and the majority of time in my sessions was spent up circling smiley faces and the paperwork of how I felt like it was written up for a 5-year-old. And I do understand.
Which didn't resonate with you.
But believe it or not.
We do have a friend that approach resonates with.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's different for different people.
Yeah, this is what I mean. You've got to find what works for you. And for some people, it's their husband.
Oh, I like that. That's quite good. But the thing, okay, just one last thing to say about trauma work, if that makes sense. Don't always think you're going to have to revisit the trauma when you go to sort it out. I mean, there's this horrible misconception, and I think it's a misconception because in some circles it is the case. Yeah, people do regression work, and they will take you back to the traumatizing event. That is not necessary, and if you ask me, it's one of those things we shouldn't be doing. The way we felt about what happened at the time, we can't change that. Yeah, that's in the past. That's happened. Yeah, and as they say,
sound like Rafiki.
They say in Endgame, your future won't change your past. All you can change is how you feel about it moving forward. That's what we should be doing. Yeah, and it is about talking to those bits of your mind that have been given that unsolvable puzzle and allowing them to just file that on the shelf under. That don't make sense. Yeah, but that's okay.
And it's not your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of the time as well.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the thing we hold on to, because we do, like we said at the start, we do wonder, what could we have done differently? But as soon as we realise there wasn't anything we could have done differently, the amount of people that say, if I go back, I'd do this or this, you wouldn't. No. Because that's not who you were at the time when you made that decision.
You'd know what you knew then, and you'd still be doing your best just as you were doing then.
Yeah.
And you'd get the same result. Look, we said this the other day about guilt. we don't get to choose when we learn the lessons in our life. Yeah, things happen to us and we learn them, hopefully. Yeah, which is why you can never really blame yourself for the version of yourself that did things wrong or made mistakes or took a wrong step. You know, not only, I mean, we're talking about trauma where there was probably nothing you could do anyway. Absolutely, you know, it's not your fault in any way, because when the younger version of ourselves inevitably ends up being the victim of the person who is playing antagonist in that scenario. Yeah, but I think we've got to remember as well that there's a different version of us. It's a more naive version of us. Probably the thing that we went through there that we're all guilty about, or the mistake we made, it was a fundamental part of our learning to be who we are now, to know the things we know now. So, we've sometimes just got to accept that thing that happened that was freaking horrendous, it turned out it was part of our journey to get where we are, you know, and we're not the finish line yet either. Yeah, we're still on that ongoing journey.
No one's ever the finished version of themselves.
Precisely.
So I suppose, if there's any takeaway, it's that things that happen to you are not your fault. And no amount of trying to work it out, trying to solve it is going to change that. So you need to, as always, as I say on every single episode of this podcast, you need to be kind to yourself. Absolutely. Allow yourself those mistakes. Allow yourself to learn the lessons as you go through life. And if there's no lesson to learn, except, you know, sometimes shit happens, then leave it there. You know what I mean? That's okay to learn that and move on. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
What a nice way. Nice place to end, I think.
I think so as well. Obviously, we're going to recommend, if you're dealing with trauma and you know you're dealing with trauma or things that you regard unresolved, see a professional.
Absolutely.
They can do wonders for you. And sometimes it'll take a while to find the right one. But when you found them, you'll be glad you did.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that. Well, thank you so much for listening, guys. I know that when we deal with these sorts of slightly heavier topics, yes, we are filling them with jokes, because if we just spoke about them seriously, we would both be here depressed. So I hope you can understand and appreciate that. And I hope you've got something positive out of this episode. And if you did, please do come tell us. You can come find us on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Britt Box, and you can find Tim at Timbox Mind Coach. You can also find all of Tim's amazing wisdom over on his YouTube channel of the same name. I highly recommend subscribing, because it's basically all of the clever stuff without me interjecting random shit. So I think that's
what people like, though.
But yes, so come find us on those socials. Let us know what you're doing when you're listening. We will speak to you next time.
And keep thinking, as a bit of keep thinking outside the box.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.